The mum and dad take dog out for a walk. Thomas puts a gun in his mouth, blows the back of his head off. Hello everybody, welcome back. Just passing through podcast episode 145. 145, incidentally, was 50% of my phone number when I was growing up as a kid. Now that is only interesting to one person, and that one person is me. And seeing as I'm in charge of this podcast, I thought I would share that with you. Right, on to more interesting things. The finer things in life, art, wine, classical music, things that I was never exposed to. Now, one of the greatest artists who is still alive today, Sir David Hockney, is a Bradford lad. He's from where I'm from. Came from much humbler upbringings than I ever did, and yet he became one of the finest, most respected artists that we have drawing breath in the world today. Before I start banging on about art, something which I have no experience of, something which I have no opinions about, apart from the Yorkshire one, is I know what I like when I see it, and that's it. There is a Hockney Museum just outside Bradford in Saltaire in Saltsmill, and I went there with my dad 2019. Now, my dad was a bit of an artist in his time, and quite a good one, actually. And we walked in there, and he said what most northern men of his age would say as soon as he saw a Hockney piece. And it was, oh, I could do better than that. You sort of think to yourself, well, why didn't you? Why didn't you pick up a paintbrush and make that your life's work instead of being a telephone engineer living in the suburbs of Bradford? I could have grown up with swimming pools and palm trees in LA. But yet we chose to stay in a grey northern city. Now, before I start going on about a certain painting I saw this week, I want to go all the way back to late February of this year. Now, in late February, in the Cotswolds, which is a very, very picturesque part of the UK, for them of you that don't know it, just Google it. It is gorgeous, beautiful. Obviously, somebody like me is never going to be able to afford to live there. No black people live there. People of different races live there. It's very white, shall we say. Very, very white. There was a story that I read a few years back now, the best tea shop in the UK, and it's in the Cotswolds. And it is run by a Japanese couple. So obviously, the people of the Cotswolds have let one through. One of these undesirables has slipped through the net. But I think the only reason they've slipped through the net is because they were allowed to come in because they were doing something that the British do well, which is tea and cake. Now, one of these residents of the Cotswolds were the parents of Thomas Kingston. Who the fuck is Thomas Kingston, you might ask? Thomas Kingston was the husband of Lady Gabriella. Lady Gabriella, who the fuck is that, you might be asking? Now, Lady Gabriella is the second cousin of Prince Charles. And she were married to this fella. Now, the Kingstons, Thomas's mum and dad, lived in Cotswolds. Obviously, it's all jobs for the boys. So the dad had made his money in the city. He were pally with Prince Charles. So that's how they got the feet under the table there. Which is how most of these fucking inbred, blue blood, fucking large Adam's apple carrying fucks do. Very upper class. Thomas Kingston went round for a bit of nosebag with his mum and dad. So after lunch, dinner, as we say up north, the mum and dad take dog out for a walk. And then Thomas puts a gun in his mouth, blows the back of his head off. Or did he? What I want to explore today is the fact that Thomas Kingston, there are rumours swirling around the UK, he's been sticking his dick where he shouldn't have been sticking it. And when you look at what's happened since, or what happened on the lead up to this, there's something there, I think. And even if they ain't, come on a journey with me. Thomas Kingston is married into the royal family. He's married King Charles now. Still can't get used to saying that. Prince Charles, King Charles. He married King Charles's second cousin back in 2019. Now, before he married her, he used to get balls deep with Pippa Middleton. Now, Pippa Middleton is the sister of Prince William. So they're keeping it all in family. The only thing I know about this Pippa Middleton was 10 years ago when Prince William got married, I were in Japan because my daughter was being born. My daughter was born around the same time as royal wedding. And the news that were filtering through about William's sister-in-law were Pippa Middleton's ass. That's what was hitting the headlines. It's the fact that she had a fat ass. British media for you. Her ass were kind of taking all the media spotlight away from the royal wedding, which, good on you, British media, because it was the best thing about it, to be honest. I remember her walking up the steps of wherever they got married, and yeah, the cameras were on her ass. I'll give it a solid 10. Anyway, Thomas Kingston were balls deep in her before the wedding. Ex-financier, he's made his money again, jobs for the boys. Made his money in the city, made a bit of a fortune for himself. Now, I've been looking back into this, and he were also a hostage negotiator in Iraq. So any of the British military were kidnapped by the opposing forces, he would go in there and negotiate to get these hostages released. Now, I don't know about you, but it seemed to me that during the Afghanistan-Iraq war, whenever any military people were taken, any aid workers were taken, any people that were there, the civilian workers were taken, they didn't seem to get many back. It always seemed to end up, they were in these orange tunics and a blunt knife was handed to a fellow with a big beard. Allahu Akbar was chanted several times, and not with the swiftest of means, a head was detached from the shoulders. I watched a few of these beheadings, and yeah, they were a bit tough to get through. Whatever Thomas did in his hostage negotiations, we seemed to get wind of more beheadings than more of these hostages that were released. And going back to these blue bloods getting jobs that they shouldn't really get, working in the city, hostage negotiation, I have first-hand knowledge of working with these dumb fucks. Now, when I was in the military, one of the most stupidest decisions I ever made in my life, I ended up in a cavalry regiment. Now, when you join a cavalry regiment, it's not like joining an infantry regiment. The officers come from the upper class. So what you've got is, in my regiment, the 4th, 7th Royal Dragoon Guards, they sort of get their pool of soldiers from West Yorkshire. And it's a tank regiment. Back in the day, we would be up on the horses running to battle with swords and red tunics and stupid fucking hats that were not made for a particular battle in the middle of Africa. But there would be in his stupid fucking red tunics and metal hats running into battle, slaying down these Africans who were coming to attack us with fucking watermelons and some sharpened bamboo, shall we say. We come from that stock. What happened later on, they obviously didn't have enough money. These people like me, back in the day, didn't have enough money to pay for the uniforms and the horses, the upkeep of the horses. So they took in people from the lower ranks of life. And that's what happened later on. You know, there were people from council estates taking orders from people who had been brought up in houses that had well over 50 rooms. Every officer I ever dealt with had an upper class accent. Now, I ended up in Germany, in West Germany as it were at that time. And I always remember I'd only been in country for about 2 weeks. And they had a sports day. And everybody had to join in this sports day. And there were a starting pistol. And I'll never forget this because it were a big turning point in my military career. There was a starting pistol and it were used for starting a race. This officer that were in charge of me, I'll never forget his name because it was the first time I'd ever heard a double-barrelled name. And his name was Major McCain Bremner. So he wasn't a young officer, sort of a middle-rank officer, because he was a major. He sat down. I remember watching him. For some reason, I had my eye on him. He sat down. He picked up the starting pistol. He pulled the trigger. It didn't work. He pulled it again. It didn't work. He looked down the barrel of the starting pistol, and this dumb fuck shot himself in the fucking face. He shot himself in the fucking face with a starting pistol. Now, on the Fast Show, I think there were a character called Rich But Dim. I say to this day, there were the origin story of this character. Who looks down the barrel of a gun and then pulls the trigger? This dumb fuck. And he was the fella that were in charge of us. As soon as I saw an officer of British Army who was supposed to be telling me how to go on, shoot himself in the face with a starting pistol, I thought, right, I'm not going to really take orders from anybody. to be honest. And for the next 3 years, I didn't, and I got into a lot of trouble about it. So this is what I'm talking about. You get born into the manner born, shall we say. You get these jobs that you're not qualified for. Obviously, he got the job in Iraq, negotiating, getting hostages away. It seemed to come out well for him. This McCain Bremner in Germany shot himself in the fucking face. How he became an officer in the British Army, I'll never know. That just lays the groundwork for it. Now, back to old Thomas Kingston. The rumours are flying around, or there were early on this year, that he'd been sticking it up Kate, the future queen. He'd been having an affair with her. Not satisfied with banging the future queen's sister, he wanted to get balls deep with our future queen. So he turns up dead at the end of February. Kate has not been seen in months. She's had abdominal surgery. Apparently she's got cancer. She releases a picture with her kids, and it's been doctored with AI. Where is she? Old Prince Charles has got form with this. His wife had been knocked up by Dodi Fayed, the heir to the Harrods Empire, Mohammed Fayed's son. She was carrying an Arab prince in her stomach when she entered that tunnel in Paris and didn't come out the other side. If Kate, who is now wearing the engagement ring of Lady Diana, if she's been doing what her mother-in-law's been doing, abdominal surgery, is it a forced abortion that she's had? Who knows? But the message that Prince Charles sent out to, his nearest and dearest, and I think the world, shown last week, when he grabbed hold of that red tassel and he pulled off that black sheet off his portrait. Jonathan Yeo, after Prince Charles had unveiled it, and then Prince Charles says, it's very red, isn't it? It's very red. As if Prince Charles did not have a clue what that were going to look like before he pulled the sheet off. He knew exactly what that portrait were going to look like. He knew exactly what colour it were going to look like. And to say that he didn't, you're fooling yourself. Now, for those of you who haven't seen it, if you're watching on YouTube, I will put up a portrait of it now and I'll put it right there. For those of you listening online, just go have a look at it. It is frightening, and it seems to be a bit of a message. I don't know if it's a message to Kate, I don't know if it's a message to his family, but it seems to me that when we've come out of 50 odd years of Queen Elizabeth, and she had the reputation of being very strong, and then you've got this son of hers who seems to be a bumbling fucking fool, I think the message is the die is being cast in this portrait. From what I've seen of it, when you look at it from afar, you've got his face, you can see his face and his hands seem to be visible from this portrait. Now, it seems to be that he's floated to the top of a bath of blood. A bath of blood. And is coming out smiling, as if to say, listen to me, you fuckers. Look what I've got away with. The death of my wife. All that shit that my country's got up to in these last few wars that they've been in. The shit that my ancestors got up to in Africa. And it seems to me he's got the artist, Jonathan Yeo, to just paint his portrait in the blood of all these fucking incidents that our country has got into over centuries. And he's got a little butterfly on his shoulder. I have no idea what that's there for. The portrait is frightening. It's frightening. Now, when you see Jonathan Yeo's my age. He's 53 years old. Now, at 53, you would expect that nothing would faze you. Now, when he's explaining this fucking portrait, there's a lot of ums and ahs, and he seems to be shitting himself. He seems to be improving the reason why he painted it in red. Now, he comes up with this, oh yeah, I painted it in red because it goes with his red tunic of the Welsh Guards, which, as the Prince of Wales, you take over as Colonel-in-Chief when you become the king-in-waiting for the throne, which Charles got in 1975. He became the Prince of Wales, although it seems to me that his favourite country in the UK is Scotland. So Jonathan Yeo is coming up with this very, very weak excuse about the old portrait being in red because of the tunic of the Welsh Guards. That seems utter bullshit. Utter bullshit. But the artist seems to be visibly grabbing for excuses of why he painted it in red. The entire thing is fucking red, apart from his face and his hands. As if he's saying to the world, just look at me in face, look what my hands can do, and look what surrounds me. I am emerging from a bath of blood and fucking guts. And all this business that's gone on in my family over the years, you can fucking paint me in that. You can paint me in the fucking misery and the blood of what I can cause. Old Charlie fucking put down his marker. And he's saying, bumbling idiot, you say? See what I can do. Just you fucking push my buttons and I will take you out. Now, hopefully, with the reach I have with this podcast, old Charlie doesn't see that and the Secret Service don't turn up or run me down on one of my cycles. I've fucking said it now. I've jinxed myself, haven't I? I've jinxed myself. I have fucking jinxed myself there. So with my however 100 downloads I get of this podcast, or not even into double figures on fucking YouTube, I hope the right people don't see it. Let's leave it there. But Charlie, don't make us believe that you didn't see that portrait before you saw it. Don't try and pull the wool over his eyes like that. You saw it, you okayed it, you let it out to the world. And good on you, my friend. Good on you. You've laid down that marker that you are strong and you are not a man to be fucked with. I'm trying to kiss his ass a bit here so I'm not run down on one of my cycles. So that's that and that's that. If you're going to have a portrait painted of yourself, you've got to be one of these blue bloods. Don't be sticking your dick in the future queen. There's not many that do. That's it and that's that. Hopefully I'm going to be here for the next episode. But we'll see. Fingers crossed. Thank you very much for sticking with us. And I'll see you when I see you. Adios, my friends. Bye-bye.
Stood before her work. She looked around everywhere. She saw the pictures and she painted them. She picked the colors from the air. Green to green, red to red, yellow to yellow. Black to black when the evening comes, blue to blue in the night. towed the line.